Okay, ready for the corgis? Yeah.
Corgis! Oh, that's very zoomed in.
Hello. It is. It's very zoomed in.
I don't really like that look. It's not a good look. Hi.
It's us.
You mean it's
You don't
us?
like that look? It's us.
I don't like how close it is. It just feels like, hey, we're in your face.
Hi, everybody.
We're in your face.
We all up in there.
Welcome to the show.
Hi. We're talking about
Deal breakers.
deal breakers.
Yep.
Things that... When should you bring them up? Not only are we talking about like deal breakers, like things that you couldn't stand about another person that would be like a reason you wouldn't date them, but also like a lot of people figure out some of this stuff way too late. And they go, oh,
Well,
you don't like want to have kids?
Right.
I know that sounds fucking stupid, but
No, it
like,
happens.
It does. It happens.
You hear about it all the time. That people like get split up or got divorced or whatever because like they like sort of talked about. Anyway, we'll talk about that. But like like we sort of talked about this topic, but like didn't think that it was important enough to like, or thought that like, oh, I'll change my mind later. I'll change my mind when I get older or whatever. It's like, no, there's just some things you're not going to change.
No.
So
kind of important stuff, because like...
Right. So like, obviously we haven't been in the dating scene for a minute.
No. For those of you who don't know us, we've been dating for 16 and a half
years.
We've been together for 16 and a half years. We've been married for 12 and a half years.
Right. So, yeah, so we haven't dated in this world of dating. I mean, I did a little bit of online dating in college when it was like brand new.
Back when you weren't really supposed to meet people on the internet and it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that was the prevailing thought, right? Was, oh, don't go meet people on the internet. Mm-hmm. You know, it used to be once upon a time, don't talk to strangers. Certainly don't get in their cars. And then now it was like, don't talk to strangers on the internet. And now we have call strangers from the internet to get in their cars and have them bring you places.
Yeah, right?
That's Uber, right?
We pay them money. It's fine. Right. And so we...
That is a fairly long amount of time. Hi, Frank. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, we...
Jet boy, how you doing?
And I understand that I'm sure there are people... we have plenty of friends, plenty of people in our world who have been together much longer than that. So we're not trying to be like, we've been together forever. No, but being 36 and 37, that's a long time.
But also, part of it is it's a long enough time where a lot of things have changed.
Oh, like, so again, many
the way
changed.
that... I mean, what did I hear? Like, almost 50% of people meet online now?
Oh, I'm sure it's more than that.
In relationships? That's crazy.
It's a long time.
Compared to when we started dating, where it was like, oh, you met someone on the internet? That's interesting.
I know, like, no one wanted to admit it. Like, we met online? Oh, okay. Like, I think, like, because we have quite a few friends who met on the internet and are now married and happy and all that. But at the time when they were, like, getting serious, oh, how'd you guys meet? Online. It was always very like, but I mean, it works for a lot of people. And in the world we live in the world of
and so
convenience,
lots of things have changed.
Yeah. And
lots of things have changed about us, too. So that's another thing, right? So one of the things that we have to absolutely, like, cover and discuss is, would some of these things matter now more, or would they have not mattered as much, back then?
Sure.
Not only just in the world that we live in, but also like from our age and our experience and things like that, right? So we met when we were 19 and 21 versus now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You and Ann met online 11 years ago. Okay.
Nice. So we, so we met when we were 19 and 21. And we met in college through mutual friends. We were both, at the time, pledging fraternity and sorority. And we met through mutual friends. And so, we definitely had conversations.
So I need to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Pot of Gald, whatever. Are you serious about that, or are we trolling? I want to, because if you're serious about that, I do want to take that serious for a minute here. I don't want to just dismiss it if you're genuinely having some issues. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, and also we should probably also take the time to put out there that we're not like professionals.
We're not therapists. We're not professionals.
No.
I went to grad school for therapy. I am not a therapist. Well, I don't want to ignore you if you're serious. I mean, there are definitely that's not an issue that we're prepared to handle on a professional level.
Right.
But there are certainly resources out there for you if you need them, and you know, more than happy to put some of that in chat.
Right.
Hi, Afro Queen. How are you?
Sorry, I had to do that because the way that the color of the font doesn't look. I couldn't see the letters of your name. Hello. Sorry, it didn't work. So what was I talking about? When we met?
Yeah, when we met. Yeah.
When we met. Sorry. And so, like, I had just ended an online relationship. It was, not great. I mean, it was fine. I was 20 and he was 23, and he was one of those people who was like, oh, I'm 23 and I haven't met the love of my life yet. Oh, my life's over. And I'm like, I'm 20. I don't have time for this. This is just too much for me. So I was like, I'm not going to date. And then I met him. We met. And I'm trying to remember, like, the first part of our dating relationship was a lot of partying. So it wasn't a lot of discussing. It was a lot of, like, meeting at parties and things. And then we decided that we thought it'd be a good idea to not have a beverage and go out on some dates and see if we liked each other. So I guess that's one thing, right? Like if you meet somebody in a partying environment or in a environment where there might be alcohol or devices involved that make you feel a little bit more relaxed.
You've been to a party since you were 12.
Then maybe it's a good idea to date away from those.
Yeah, I mean, well, and
see if that's a deal breaker. If I only like you when I'm drunk or not.
I mean, that's also another thing too. Like
discussing
things that you're okay with, as far as like, you know, are you okay with somebody that drinks? Are you okay with somebody that smokes? Now, smoking might be one of those things where, okay, we're going to talk about when you talk about some of these things, right? Smoking might be one of those things, for me, now having dated a smoker, where it's like, no, absolutely not, regardless of like when you bring it up.
Right, probably shouldn't be what the whole relationship revolves around. Exactly.
Right, no, exactly.
Right. And we met in that environment, and then I was like, well, I actually kind of think I like you. So, and we had also talked on AOL Instant Messenger. Chirp, 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 chirp. And so we did talk online after meeting each other. We didn't text.
I had ICQ back in the day.
I have no idea what that means.
Yep.
So, 16 and a half years. We met in 2003. And it's how long we've been together. So, yeah, so I was like, maybe we should get together and do something not drinking and see how it goes. And you're like, sure, why not? So I guess you could say I made the first move. I don't know, but I don't know. Would you accept that?
It's a year before you were born.
Well, that's a thing.
That makes me feel really old, man.
It's fine. It's fine. It's great. No problems. Everything's fine.
Wait, that makes us more than twice that person's age.
No. Yeah. Oh, older than your parents. Thanks. I get that a lot, actually, from my students.
Sarah works in a school.
I work in a high school. And oftentimes I'll either be the same age as their parents or like a year or two younger, a year or two older. I mean, like...
your beard hurts.
Yeah, I often get that because oh, my mom's whatever, you're not as old as my mom. And I'm like, actually, I am.
So that's something we should talk about, though, right? Because we've got somebody who's hanging out with us who's 16, and so when you talk about certain things in a relationship, is going to be way, 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 way different than when you're 16 versus when you're like, say, like in a hypothetical world, Sarah and I weren't married and we like just started dating. There's way different things we would talk about now. Like,
for sure.
You know, at our age. You would talk
marriage and kids are
you
right
talk
off
about
the bat.
marriage and kids like right away within
Yes.
like and quite frankly, I think within like the first 2 months of dating somebody.
Oh, I would say the first couple dates.
You think the first couple dates?
At 37, I think the first couple of dates is like, I mean, because at 37, when I was 20, I thought it was all downhill. Now I'm like, oh yeah, right. Yeah, I would say at 37, it would be within the first couple of dates, for sure.
You think that's a second date?
I mean, just because, well, right, if the first date, if things
Sure.
don't work out, and it's just like, then there is no second date. But if you get to the second date,
Right.
and you're like, I might like this person.
But yeah, it sounds like everyone agrees. It's all definitely like something you should do like pretty shortly into a relationship.
I mean, now you're
especially as you
16,
get older.
but...
Yeah, 16 years old. Okay, 16, do not be talking about, do you want to get married, do you want to have kids? Okay, because that's not that you shouldn't, or that that's bad, but that's going to drive someone away real quick.
Right. No, I think so. And at 37, it's like I know what I want from my life. Like, I'm pretty settled in my career. Like, I know what I want from my life. So if someone's not, if I were single, I think that I would want to be looking for somebody who wanted to be in a committed relationship. And if I'm not going to play around at 37, you know? So yeah.
Thanks, Jet Boy. Appreciate that.
Okay, so marriage.
You're 36 tomorrow? Well, happy early birthday.
Happy birthday. So marriage, yes, very important, especially if that is, because that's not just something that's going to change over time, I don't think. I think there are some things, like there are definitely probably things, and I can't think of them off the top of my head, but maybe they'll come up as we talk, that I've changed drastically on. Well, my political views, I guess. And I'm not going to talk about what those are, but my political views have changed as I've gone from being a college kid to a now almost 40-year-old parent. So it's, yeah, things change. So marriage.
Yeah, marriage.
What else?
Kids, definitely another one. Do you want kids or not? Obviously, that's kind of a big deal. And that's one of those things that may change over time, but you definitely want to talk about that up front, especially the older you get, right? Because, I mean, there's obviously the biological aspect to it where there's only so much time. Now, obviously, people are having kids later and later these days, but...
I guess.
Again, in a hypothetical world where we weren't married right now, we would definitely have talked about that, like, by now, for sure.
Right. Right.
You want kids, but only when my husband is on board? Sure.
Well, and I think we both, from the beginning, were like, yes, we want children. That is important to us in our life. Now, we didn't agree on the number of children for a while. That
now you're arguing at my age, hey, you're going to make babies or not?
for retirement. Oh, yeah. Right. Well, right.
Yeah, religion, Afro Queen, that's another one. That's a big deal breaker for a lot of people.
So it's interesting. I actually I did a little crowdsourcing. Sure.
Smoking and drinking, sure, yeah.
And asked about kind of the 4 ones that I could think off the top of my head. The 4 big ones: marriage, children, politics, and religion. And kind of like, when would you bring them up? You know, the first couple dates or after that. And it was interesting because a lot of people who responded to my polls, they would bring up politics and religion before marriage and children, which I found really interesting because...
Do you think that's part of just the times that we live in because we're so politically charged these days?
Maybe, because it wasn't like that when we were dating at all. Right, drive, motivation, sure.
Yeah.
And I think that and I know friends who have ended relationships because they just felt like, I'm trying to advance in my career, I'm trying to move up, I'm trying to do things with my life, I have goals, and their partner was like, sure, I'll just stay here in this place. I don't need to move up.
I feel like that's something that's hard to have a conversation about. That's like one of those interview questions, when you talk about like, oh, well, tell me about your, desire to move up in the world, or your motivation to do better in life, right? It's one of those questions that like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to try and answer that in a positive light. It's almost one of those things where I think you have to just kind of learn that about a person, and is that the appropriate level of drive for you.
Which is interesting, actually, now that we talk about it, because you and I have had this conversation before.
We have.
And I'm sitting here like, yeah. But then really, I'm the person, I'm the one out of the two of us who has less drive out of the two of us.
And that's because I am, and I've put this picture on the stream before, I am like hyper type A. I go to town on everything. Right.
And like, I'm a sign language interpreter. That is my job. And I could be a sign language interpreter in a vast variety of settings. And so, currently I work in a school. Great. It's my dream job too. No, actually it's not. My dream job is to be a professional touring singer. But I just didn't do anything about that. So yes, so I am in a career where I could, or in a field rather, where I could do things. I could advance. I could do different types of interpreting. Like, I'm in a school right now. I have not done an Eminem concert. I have not done any like big stadium arena concerts. I've always thought it would be super cool, but it's like,
yeah, you're too like anxious or shy about that.
Well, here's what I didn't actually know really about concert interpreting until I was actually an interpreter and I went to concerts and I would seek out the interpreter, is that they're not actually on stage with the singer, which that's what I would want to do. If I was interpreting for Justin Timberlake, I better be on stage with Justin Timberlake.
That's because you'd want to like touch him and stuff.
I just want to be near him and be in his presence because he's beautiful. But the interpreters are actually like on like the like floor level. The Afro Queen knows where I'm going with this. They're like, there's usually like a section for people who are there to see the interpreter, and it's not on the floor usually, but it's like just kind of like the first couple rows off the floor, and that's where the interpreter is kind of like in a corner with a stand and a little light. I can always spot them. I know where they are. I can find them like immediately when I'm in a concert, and I always look for them, and then I'm like, am I close enough to figure out if I know them? Always. That is what I do at concerts. But my point is, back to what I was talking about, you work your job in the car business. There are lots of opportunities for you to do more.
Yes.
I can do more, but like to be like a boss in my field, I need to put myself out there way more than I am, and I need to be doing more things in the public eye than I am. And I joked once that I'm like, I would love to interpret for Obama, like when he was president, because that would be really cool. And now here we are, like in Minnesota, we have an amazing certified deaf interpreter who interprets for our governor's press conferences, and it's like, I mean, that could have been a thing. Like interpreting for Obama, but they also have amazing interpreters in DC, so I don't really need to be doing that. I don't really need to be out there doing that.
No, that's okay. Tangents are totally fine. We're just hanging out, having fun.
My point being though is that we've had this conversation about, I don't understand his like need to continue to seek out more in his work, because I'm really happy where I am right now. I love the people I work with. I love the students I work with. I love, I mean, yeah, I don't work in K-12 education for the money. Like, that's for darn sure. I do this because I love what I do, and I love working, impacting students, and I love education. And I'm good with where I am. There's no opportunity really for advancement. I'm not going to, like, become the principal. Like, that's not... But I still have drive to do well in my work. I just don't have the drive to seek out advancement. Like, now I'm also a Zumba instructor. And that would, like, one of my, like, things that I would love so much to do is to, like, do a class at our big annual convention. But I first need to go to a convention.
And that's also one thing, this drive thing that we're talking about is one thing that you and I have had arguments, disagreements about, where my level of drive has been like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you just... Because you, in my mind, don't have enough, like, just fuck you, go do it.
I don't have enough go-getting. I'm a pretty big introvert. I also, like, overall, just general, have a lower level of confidence in myself than what you think I should have. Like, people are always telling you you're such a great interpreter.
They are. She's really good.
People are always complimenting your work.
I only understand about 30% of it, but she's really good.
Like, and thank you. And you're the only one who doesn't think you're good enough, blah, blah, blah. Which is true, but I think that also keeps me kind of humble. I don't know. Because there is the risk of really letting your ego blow up in this field. And I try to make sure that doesn't happen to me. But I am acknowledging a lot more now that I am a good interpreter. So anyway,
are there? So let's go back to 19-year-old and 21-year-old.
Yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm.
We did talk about marriage, and we did talk about kids.
Yes.
Like fairly early on, not like we would now, where it would be like, you know, like some people said date number 2. I said, you know, maybe within the first 2 months. It wouldn't be like that kind of a thing, but no. You know, we definitely talked about those two things probably within the first 6 months.
Okay, but let's go back a minute to our actual technical first date when we were like not drinking.
Yes.
You asked me to be your girlfriend after that date.
Ooh! I have one.
Uh-oh.
Eating.
Oh, yeah. He wants to tell the Olive Garden story.
Okay, so we went to a...
Matrix?
Well, yeah.
Went to the Matrix.
So
I don't remember which one.
Wait, I need to preface this because this is going to sound like that was your first date.
This was 16 and a half years ago, people.
It was 16 and a half years ago, and it was in a small town. We went to a small school in a town of like 25,000 people. There wasn't another large town for another 45 minutes away. Yeah.
We went to La Crosse. We went to.
So there wasn't a whole lot to do.
No.
So like dinner and a movie, bleh, whatever. But
in college, that's kind of a lot. Olive Garden was a lot of money in college. Okay.
Jet Boy, seriously, if there you go. There's dinner and a movie. Come up with something more creative than that.
But that's still fun.
It is, but it's
it might be in your
okay,
budget.
But here's the problem. It's not a good first date.
Oh,
first date
dinner
is like get to know you and learn about you.
Dinner?
Dinner, yeah. But then sit in a movie like this where you may or may not grab the other person's hand. And they're going to do the awkward like...
Oh my gosh. No. People. It must have been like the weekend... I think it was the weekend after the movie came out because it was a packed theater. The couple next to us, I'm not kidding, she was like, her legs were like in his lap and they were like making out.
We would get banned from Twitch, I think.
Right. Let's not do it. Let's not demonstrate. But I'm like, and thank God you and I had sort of like hung out, even though it was in a party setting before that. Otherwise, if that was like the actual first time we spent any time together, that would have been more awkward than it was.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whether you're a PDA kind of person or not.
Right. I mean, we're hold hands in public kind of people. We're not make out in public kind of people.
We'll do like a short kiss if we're leaving one another for,
or if we're
a period of time, but that's about it.
Or if we're imbibing, we do get a little more like kissy when we're at a bar or a brewery or something and we're drinking.
Speaking of which, will you hand me the beer?
I have to get like off the screen.
I know.
Rude. You're gonna like talk crap about me behind my back even though I'm right here?
No, otherwise, I think we talked about religion, and I don't know that we directly had this conversation, and I don't think that you need to go, oh, well, what do you think about religion, or what, but we definitely talked about those things.
Because for me, like, I grew up in the Lutheran church, and he grew up in the Catholic church, but not like... You didn't go through confirmation. Can I help you with this? My phone's right there, and it makes me nervous. He didn't go through confirmation. He didn't go through all that stuff like is expected of hardcore Catholics. And so, like, you grew up in the Catholic Church, but you were like like Christmas and Easter.
I had always been very like Christian light.
Right. So for me, it was always important to get married in a church. Just because that was always what I wanted, was to get married in a church. And it was always really important to me, even when I was really young, that my children are baptized. Lucas is not yet, and that is because...
Okay, but that's because of Corona.
But that is... right, the church closed. We had a date scheduled, and it was like 2 weeks after COVID started shutting everybody down. So... We haven't baptized.
I don't know if anyone's seen the picture of the
Nerf gun,
the pastor with the squirt gun.
I doubt Pastor Gene is watching, but if you are, we're willing to do that. If it makes you feel better. So yes. How old is he's 7 months old?
Yeah, I think he's like a week older than yours.
He's December 3rd, so he's actually 7 months and 1 week today. No. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So, yes. So we did talk about religion.
Dogs. We talked about dogs.
Pets.
I mean, neither of us owned dogs, but I had always said that I wanted dogs,
Same.
And you were okay with that.
Yep. Yeah, pets is a big one. I think that...
Especially now, like, if we had pets.
I think, like, if you were a diehard animal lover, I would imagine pets would be a deal breaker. Because, like, I grew up with hamsters.
And I feel like that's something you got to bring up right away. And I feel like that's something totally okay to bring up right away. Like,
especially,
it's safe, because...
Right. Pets.
No one's going to get in an argument about pets, so much. Like
right.
you would, say...
Marriage.
Politics.
Right. We did not talk about politics for a long time.
Well, I mean, holy
ever.
crap, I had just voted for the first time long before,
That's right. That's right. Your first election was the year before.
Right.
Wait. We met in 2003, wasn't 2004 the first? Yeah, so your first election was a year after we started dating. Because you weren't old enough in 2000.
That's right. That's
you weren't
right.
Old.
Yeah.
My first election was 2000. So you weren't old enough. What? Just like, we struggle there because I want to baptize the twins, but spouse. Yeah. Yeah. So Bobby is kind of, do we say agnostic? Would you identify yourself that way?
Yeah, agnostic.
Yes. And so...
Not atheist.
But he also understands that it's really important to me that Lucas is baptized. I grew up in the church. It was a big part of my life. I'm still in touch with a lot of the kids that I grew up with in the church. I have a lot of great memories from my time in confirmation and youth group at church. So it was just really important to me to be able to do that. And he was fine with that. Same with getting married in a church. He was fine with it. He was fine getting married in a Lutheran church because he knew that was important to me because I belonged to a church.
Okay, so Nightheart, help me understand. You dislike pets, but you like animals. Is it the like taking care of them and owning them stuff, or?
Oh, don't even get me started on that, Afro Queen. Don't even get me started. Adult baptism.
Oh.
Yep. I have feelings on, like, dedicate. I have feelings. It's fine.
Oh, you're talking about that.
Dedications, and then letting a child or a person decide for themselves if they want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have feelings, but it's fine. And
we're talking about like a Joel Osteen style church. P.S.
Nightheart Gaming. I I really dislike owning or possessing or being responsible for. Well, that's the thing is we wanted pets, and when we got married, Bobby was like, your wedding gift is going to be a dog. I'm like, okay, but I'm not ready for a dog yet. I don't want a dog right away. Like, I don't want the responsibility.
I thought it was a great idea.
Well,
it was.
I mean, I love him. He's here. He's down here. I love him. But then when I started getting like the baby fever way before he was ready, then I was like, all right, I'll take my wedding gift now. So we got Nemo like a year and a half after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And he's now 13.
He's now our old man.
He's our little ordinary old man. And we have Chewy as well, who's going to be 2 on Saturday. He's behind us.
Oh,
he's always behind us.
He's upside down. Okay.
Behind us. And Nemo's under the desk in front of us, and Chewy's behind us. Corgi. And stop sign?
Yeah, I don't know where Nate came from. My bad. So we definitely talked about religion. We talked about kids. We talked about marriage.
Yeah.
We obviously knew that both of us drank. So
Right. And we never talked about politics. And I think that's really interesting because when we met, so I voted, my first election was right after I turned 18. It was the 2000 election. Please do not come at me. I think it was Gore and the second Bush.
Yes.
Don't come at me. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I don't remember. And so that was my first election. And then your first election was...
Obama.
No, 2004.
Yeah,
Obama...
08. No, 08.
Yeah, 08 was not 04. Obama was 08. So 04 was Bush and I don't remember who he went against. The Kerry? No?
No,
not John Kerry.
Was it John Kerry? Yeah, I think.
Was it John Kerry?
I think so, yeah.
We're terrible, people. These obviously were not impactful moments in our life.
No.
Clearly. So, my first election, I was still in high school. And I don't even know if Jeb Boy knows who Gore and Bush are. I'm just thinking like he's 16.
Probably not. Bush, maybe. Maybe.
Second one. Junior.
W.
So I was voting.
I would do my southern accent, but I don't want to.
No.
I don't want to upset either of the two people that are from Texas.
Don't offend people that like us.
I do 3 different southern dialects, but yeah, like I said. I do.
Okay.
No, there are very distinctly different southern accents.
I understand. There's also there's distinct Midwestern accents too.
That's true. I forgot you're not from Texas originally.
So I voted, and I imagine you as well. Even though you were a little bit older than 18, you were in college already. Like my parents voted. I voted the way that I was raised in the politics I was raised in.
I don't remember actually. I
didn't ask you because you aren't supposed to ask people who they vote for.
I voted Obama the first time, but I don't remember who I voted for my first election ever.
I don't know because you weren't libertarian yet at that point. You've turned libertarian, and so it's interesting because we didn't really talk about our political views, but I remember there were several times, and one in particular because it was an upcoming election. But I remember being at a dinner table with your parents and getting so close to almost leaving your parents' house because I felt very insulted as the opposite political party from your parents. And I am not good at standing up.
Okay, opposite from my dad.
Your dad. I'm sorry. I won't say parents. Your dad.
In fact, my parents oftentimes voted opposite from one another.
Yes, your dad. And your dad was very vocal about his feelings about the other party. And I wanted to also be very careful to not disrespect your dad because I was trying to become part of your family. And I also just not really great about standing up for myself when it comes to that stuff because I get very nervous. I'm very introverted. I don't don't like confrontation. I like to have all my facts and feel confident in my information before I say things, and I didn't feel confident in my knowledge of politics at all in this moment. So after that, you and I talked, I think, more, if at all, about politics.
I don't know that we talked politics in the sense that this is how I was raised.
Yep.
These are a couple of the things that I think about the world,
Yep.
but not so much in a sense of like...
No, deal breaker stuff, no. I mean,
No,
we were already,
not really.
We were already engaged at that point.
And we were, at that point we were pretty far into it.
Yeah.
And
And
at that point, I didn't think, especially in that point in our lives and that
Mm-hmm.
time in the world, there wasn't anything you were going to say that I was going to be like, what?
No.
We're done.
And there have been actually a lot of things that have come out of my mouth in the last probably 3 or 4 years that Bobby's been like, pointed out that it's a political issue, and I didn't even realize it was.
Mm-hmm. And especially when it's something that you would have changed your mind on from, years
That's
ago.
different than my perspective was. Yes, exactly. So that's interesting, because to talk about things that you would discuss as that you would talk about with someone you're maybe looking to pursue a relationship with, and then if you're in a relationship, how maybe you have additional deal breakers that kind of come up, or things that you didn't realize were super important to you one way or the other that come out later, like finances.
Mm-hmm. Finance is definitely something that needs to... I mean, okay, again, if you're 16
Not
years
second
old...
date.
No.
Right.
It also depends on... I mean, it depends on lots of things, right? Even at 19 and 21, was that a thing that we really thought about? No, because we were both college students. What finances did we have?
I worked in the admissions office 8 hours a week.
Yeah, for like $8 an hour, and like
Barely.
Well, but
Yeah.
that's my point. It wasn't
Right.
like we make what we make now, and we need, we weren't adults. We didn't need to talk about those kinds of things.
And I think that as we got closer to our wedding date and getting closer to making decisions about buying a house, that's when, and I was starting to explore jobs and apply for jobs, then we talked more about how we wanted to handle our finances. Like the whole idea of joint and separate. And we've said this before on the show where we have both. We do both. We have a joint account, and then which is where most of our money goes, and then we each have separate accounts, which we used to have like fun money, but we're kind of at a point where fun money is kind of for Lucas.
Let's talk about that for a second though, because this is something a little bit different and it's kind of a tangent. Mm-hmm. Couples financing, right? We did talk about this at one point. There's what we do, which is yours, ours, and mine. Mm-hmm. And prior to the last couple of months, basically it was we set aside a certain amount of money, and we have to make it fair, right? So it's not like, one person gets a ton of money because they make a ton more and whatever, right? But each set aside amount of money each month, or paycheck, or whatever it is that you're going to do, and then that's the money that you get to do whatever you want with. You want to go buy whatever, get your hair colored, great, cool,
yeah,
right? If I want to go buy like stupid things because I want to be on the internet and buy $120 mic, great, cool, I can do that.
Okay, but
and then you have a joint account that just pays your bills.
But also, when we're talking about like our fun money, if you're going to say buy a new gun, that is something that you run by me.
Which we will talk about that topic in a minute.
Right. But like there's
major purchases, right? That's something
even though it's the money that I can do whatever I want with, if it's going to impact our life, then we talk about it.
I'm not just gonna go, I have this much money, I'm gonna go adopt a dog because I want to. That's not how it works.
No, we picked that dog out together.
No, but the point is, it's not just because I have the money to do it, I'm gonna go do it. If it was, I have $40, I'm gonna go buy some beer. Sure, whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a pedicure. Woo!
Right.
Go get coffee with friends, which I would love.
So there's yours, ours, and mine.
Yep.
There's everything is joint.
Yep.
And then there's everything separate.
Right.
I don't
know anything about those ways.
I think we know more people where everything's separate than we do everything's together.
Right.
You're right. I mean, everything impacts your life together.
Yeah.
I guess some to a much lesser degree, right? If I go buy a 4-pack of beer, whatever, you know.
But that's the thing is, like, one thing that I've always been really proud about with our marriage is that, and one of the reasons we waited so long to have children, is that we felt it was super important to build a solid communication foundation and, like, be able to talk to each other about things. So if I was, like, getting the itch to have pink hair, I'm not asking your permission. I'm just discussing it with you and saying, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And then he'd be like, that's weird. Because we would, right? You'd say that's weird, probably.
No, I wouldn't.
I think I'm not.
You're saying like you think it's weird, which is
I do.
odd because you brought up the example of pink hair.
Right,
So,
I do think. Well, but he's saying like some people would flip out over hair color changes.
Yeah,
like,
some people would.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So,
but I also think I feel like you'd probably know your partner or know like if that was something that was going to freak them out.
Right, but again, like we've gotten to a point where like checking in with each other is just that. It's not asking permission. It's not like it's checking in and saying,
It's hey, unless you have some huge objection to this, I'm going to do this.
Right.
Or I'm going to go buy whatever, or, you know.
Right. Hey, I'm going to sign up for this 5K on this day. Do we have plans? Like that kind of thing versus not just like, yeah. Anyway. So, yes, finances. Finances is a huge thing that, isn't it like one of the top causes of divorces? Or something?
It is and it isn't.
Oh,
okay. People think it is. It's not as high. It is. It's definitely like if you were to put together a top 10 list, it's definitely on a top 10 list. It's not as high as people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, we've gone through different... So, okay, let's talk about... speaking of finances, when we started dating and we were getting closer to marriage and I was already in my career, you weren't quite in your career yet, you were thinking about grad school, whatever, and you knew that without the master's degree, the jobs that were in your field, which was mental health, were not going to be paying the big bucks.
No.
I, on the other hand, was able to start working and make more money. And so we had to have the conversation of, are you okay with that? Mm-hmm. With me making more money than you for a while.
Okay, so this gets into two things.
Yeah.
My finger's not on the screen. This gets into two different things.
One,
it gets into gender roles.
Yeah.
Like traditional, stereotypical gender roles. Right. And I'm totally not saying, like, men need to be the like breadwinner, but it also gets into what happens when somebody makes more, like dramatically more than another person.
Right. And as the spouse who has been, I think.
And for us, for us, it got into love languages. If anyone's ever read that book, it's super interesting. It talks about the way that
Have you read this book?
Parts of it, yeah.
Because I've not read this book.
Yeah, I've read parts of it in grad school.
I didn't think you'd be interested in reading this book.
No,
so I didn't.
Yeah. And so one of the things that it gets into is the way that you show your affection towards other people. Yeah. And for some people, the way that some people show their affection for people, and very much is a sort of traditional value, is that men provide for their family, right? Mm-hmm. So Cheap Trick raid, as in Cheap Trick Conjurers. Okay, gotcha. I was thinking Cheap Trick the band.
Hat Trick?
Something that some younger people are not going to understand.
No.
Thank you for the raid, though. I appreciate that. No, Cheap Trick Conjurer is a Lord of the Rings reference. Yes.
I'm terrible at remembering things.
I'm not some conjurer of cheap tricks.
Got it. Okay. Right. So and yeah, whether you think that kind of stuff is like, hokey, it can be really valuable in the relationship and knowing each other's love language. And now I'm going to go read the books. I don't know.
It is, but that's again a very traditional value of like men are supposed to provide for their families, right? And that's where I came from. That was my background, and so that was something that we struggled with. Was because she made dramatically more money than I did.
We struggled with.
I struggled with. Okay. Because I felt like I should be the one providing for my family. Again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's the background that I came from.
Right, same here. We were just talking about this, where we grew up in homes. So we grew up in very different socioeconomic statuses, but both of us, our dads were the primary earners. They worked full time, and our moms both stayed home with the kids until the youngest was in school, and then both of our moms only ever worked part-time. And for my family, it was probably very helpful that my mom worked. For your family, it was like, that's great, more than helpful. Like, it wasn't needed, right? Like, for your mom to work, it wasn't necessary.
It was entirely just because she was bored and had nothing to do because my sister and I were both in school.
And she had some great, like, friends from it and stuff. And my mom, it started out as, like, keeping busy while we were at school, but then I think it turned into, actually, we could do a lot more with my mom working part-time. Like, I think that's why we got to go to Disney World when we were older.
But we were talking about this before we went on. That led us to gender roles, right? So that's definitely something else to think about too, or to talk about too. Yeah. Where do people stand on division of labor? Division of labor, we were talking about finances being one of the biggest causes of divorces. Division of labor is actually the number one.
Of what?
Divorce.
No, labor or labor?
Division of labor.
Okay, you're saying labor. That's why I was like, wait.
Division of labor.
Stop drinking.
Division of labor is actually is the number one cause of divorce, as I understand it. If I'm remembering correctly from grad school. Scorekeeping?
That goes to like division of labor. Like, I do more than you do.
It can. It can. But we were talking about that. You and I share fairly traditional gender roles.
Not intentionally.
Right, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
So let's go on a little tangent for that too, right? It is perfectly okay in my mind if you do most of the cooking, except for the grilling.
Because I
do most of the yard work. Because you don't freaking want to do the yard work. I don't want to mow the lawn.
Are you kidding me? I hate mowing the lawn.
I grew up mowing the lawn. I know how to mow the lawn. I know how to operate. I know how to fix the lawnmower for brakes. I know how to tune a carburetor.
I've mown the lawn.
You don't know how to do that. So I do the outdoor stuff. It's fine.
I've mowed the lawn in this. So we had a townhouse for 10 years. So neither of us mowed the lawn there. We moved to this house. I mowed the lawn. I've done it twice. And it was because you were in a super busy season where one of the managers was on paternity leave. And you had to fill in. And you were basically working like every single day. And didn't have time to mow the lawn.
7 to 7.
Yeah, like every day. And so I was like, oh, fine, I'll do it. And I hated it both times. I guess it was a good workout, but I hated it. Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
I hate.
But I guess the point is, in my opinion, it's perfectly fine if you have those very traditional gender roles, as long as everybody in the relationship agrees that that's the way it should be.
Right. And I sometimes get frustrated because I don't like the fact that I've become the one who does the laundry. But at the same time, I'm the one who's choosy about how my laundry is done. So I kind of brought that on myself.
Sure. So we know somebody who she went to college for her MRS, which is Mrs. degree.
Mrs. We do.
And that's okay. That's what she wanted.
Yeah.
I get that. I don't agree with that. You know, I feel like it's pretty outdated. But that's what she wanted. That's fine.
Right. Essentially. Right. So yes, I think that that's a super important thing, especially now. Like I think this has always been an important topic. Don't get me wrong. I think that, you know, when we were in college and we were getting ready to graduate and be out in the world, I mean, I knew that I wanted to work. I wanted to have a career. Like, I knew this about myself. So I think that it was important to have those that was Chewy. If you heard that was him shaking himself off against the wall. He's loud.
But like this is also not a topic that we would have talked about at 19, 20 years old.
God, no. No. These are things that
we didn't.
The household.
Who's gonna cook? We didn't cook. We were in college. We went to the cafeteria.
We did.
You scan your card and go, okay, give me food.
Easy Mac. Right, no, I didn't cook. I mean, my roommates and I sometimes on the weekends would cook, but almost never. And I think that we just kind of like settled into stuff when we moved in together. I don't think like either we didn't talk about it. It just kind of like happened. Like, but we are both terrible about cleaning the house. And here's why. You grew up with, not your whole life. I'm sure there was a point where that didn't happen.
Chunk of my life, though.
At least since you've been in Minnesota.
From a point where I was old enough to have potentially done it myself.
You've had a cleaning service. Mm-hmm. And my mom, because
we don't now.
We don't have one. No.
But growing up,
we just have a
growing up in my teenage years when I would have been physically capable and knowledgeable enough to do it myself.
Right. Not that we're opposed to having one. We just don't have the means to do that right now, and also, so we just have kind of like a messy, dirty house. Except for our kitchen. I clean the kitchen. That's the one thing that I clean regularly. And my mom worked part-time, and so she had time during the day when we were both at school, my brother and I. Every Wednesday was cleaning day and laundry day. She would do laundry, she would clean the bathrooms every Wednesday. And then my dad would once a week vacuum whenever he had time to do it. And so in my head, that's what I thought. Like, I would clean the kitchens and the bathroom, and then you would vacuum. That's kind of how it did end up working out anyway. And I just did laundry. And you just did outside stuff.
We've run into, I don't want to say arguments, because you and I genuinely, we rarely like argue. We've had discussions where we disagree with each other, or we've had to like hash things out. You're giving me this face. Like, we don't. How many times have you and I ever yelled at each other?
Okay, since we've had a child and I've had massive raging hormones, we've had a lot of arguments.
Okay, but how many times have you and I ever yelled at each other? I can count on two hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Less than 10, for sure. Yeah, so I think, yes, so that's another thing that would be important to talk about. Gender roles and what you think about them. Mm-hmm. And if or not so much gender roles, but like, what role do you want to play in your relationship? Yeah. Or do you just think that whatever is important to you?
But again, division of labor.
Right. Like, there we go. That's what I meant.
Who's going to do what jobs around the house?
Right. Because I don't like outside stuff. That's why I don't have a garden. And
again, I know that sounds like really traditional and what you call it?
Sexist?
No, I was thinking like gender normative, but
I just don't like doing outside stuff.
You don't know how you've mowed the lawn twice in your life. I grew up mowing the lawn. I know how to fix a carburetor. I know how to sharpen the blade. I just mow the lawn because I know how to do it.
I mowed the lawn at the cabin. The other thing, though, is I grew up in a townhouse. So I didn't have to mow the lawn growing up because we lived in a townhouse. So someone else did it.
It's perfectly okay to rely on your knowledge and your skills and use your skill set if that's what it is. Even if it does happen to be like very stereotypical gender normative, like that's okay.
Right.
If that's okay with the other person.
Right. Like, my skill isn't doing laundry because, let's be really clear, most of the time we live out of clean laundry baskets. I mean, I'd say not 50-50, but a majority of the time the laundry does not get put away right away. So, I mean, I'm good at throwing it in on Sundays and throwing it in the dryer. I'm good at doing that, hanging stuff up. But that's not, it is what it is. What other things?
So yeah, those are things that we wouldn't have talked about back when we were 19 and 21 years old.
No.
There are definitely things that, so we talked about this before we came on, because we were talking about, well, what do we bring up?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we thought about was, well, what are things that we would talk about now if 36 and 37-year-old Bobby and Sarah were going to start dating, or if we were divorced and we had to go back out into the world and start dating again.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we talked about earlier, for me, firearms.
Oh, yeah.
I own several of them. They did not, in fact, get lost in the lake, as much as I joke about that stuff. That for me would be, because it's such a divisive issue for a lot of people. That for me would be one of those things that I need to talk about up front, because I don't want to get into a relationship, and 6 weeks down the road someone goes, "Oh, you have one of those? Yeah, I got many of them." That's a problem, right? And partly because I carry a firearm on a regular basis, so I would literally be on a first date with one.
Right. And I don't like them. But we have had many conversations between a husband and wife about owning them, having them in our home, etc., etc. Many conversations about it, because we don't feel the same way about them. So yeah, that for you, I imagine that would be a pretty big.
Do you have any now that you didn't have back then, do you think?
One of my things that I've always had has been the willingness to get along with my family. So I come from my parents and my brother are all deaf. And no, that's not why I'm a sign language interpreter. I went to school for education, then psychology. I changed my major to psychology after my freshman year. Later on, decided, right before I graduated, that I wanted to be an interpreter. Finished my degree, went to an interpreting program. So one of my things was always that I needed whoever my partner was to be able to be willing to communicate with my family. Bobby is not fluent in sign language. He took 2 classes in college.
I will readily admit that's my fault after 16 and a half years.
If he has enough of this, he feels very confident communicating with my family. Because he knows sign language. He doesn't feel confident in his ability to use it.
It's a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah. He took 2 ASL classes with me in college. Yes, I took ASL in college because my GPA, by my own fault, dropped pretty dramatically, and I needed to build it back up. And I wanted to take it with you also because, I wanted to help you learn. Also,
it felt like cheating.
Even the teacher called me out. Yeah, even the teacher. The teacher was an interpreter at the school who had interpreted for my mom at stuff and was like, "Why are you here?" It's like,
Yeah, and Neidhart, that's a good point. I'm going to be learning a lot more now as we have a son who's now hit the age of being able to learn language. So physiologically speaking, your brain develops the ability to make connections between this means this thing before your vocal cords are sophisticated enough to put words
beyond
together. Yeah, exactly. And so people who teach their kids sign language, like you're talking about, their kids actually develop language faster because they've developed those connections. And so Lucas is actually starting to understand more.
Last night he just started, so this is a sign for more. And so we've been doing it for a few weeks now where, he's had a few bites of his solids and then we're not really sure if he's full. So we'll put on a spoon and go more. And then, over time, he's realized that means that he gets more foods. Then he'll go like this. And then last night, he opened his mouth and was doing this at the same time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he did it tonight again, by the way. I'm so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh.
And eventually that'll go from this to this,
right.
or to this.
Right, because we don't do milk
Shaping,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't do milk yet. Maybe we should, milk. But that looks like more and bye-bye and whatever. So, yeah, so we do more and all done right now, and I try to sign with him whenever I think of it, like, you know, if we're looking at things, or if he hears something, I'll be like, oh yeah, someone's like mowing the grass.
Animals learn better too, because you're getting an auditory cue and a visual cue, right? So like our dogs know stay, or you know.
Right. Yeah, and he'll start to know a lot of things because he has to learn sign language because he has to communicate with his grandparents and his aunt and uncle, and you know, so he's gotta know, which will help you know in the process, so you feel a little bit less left out in conversations. My niece and nephew are both hearing, and they're the worst when you do family get-togethers. They're the worst. Like, they're like, ooh, Aunt Sarah and Uncle Bobby can talk to me. So they just talk to us, and then I'm like interpreting for them because they won't sign.
You went through that phase too.
I totally did that. Yeah, I totally was like, oh, I don't want to talk. I don't want to sign. Like, totally did that. Right. But then I'm like, you guys, I know that we can.
And then they say shit that their parents shouldn't hear.
And
we're like, guys.
This happened. They were at our house like a month ago, and they said something like that they didn't realize people were listening to, and I interpreted it to my brother and his girlfriend, and they were like, excuse me, and they're like, how did you? I said, kids, don't say things in front of Aunt Sarah and Uncle Bobby that you don't want your mom and dad to know about, because I'm gonna tell them. And they're just like, oh, right. So you throw it in just whenever he was talking about an animal verbally, and suddenly sign the verbal. Yeah. Oh, I do that. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I do that when I'm drunk. I can't say English, so I just like throw a sign out. My friends are like, that helps us none. I'm sorry, I just can't say the word. Yeah. Right. So yes.
Yeah, and again, that's the reason that's helpful is because it's another cue. It's another. I can't remember what the word is, but I know the sign. I'll use that.
Right. So yes, it's very exciting that Lucas is now like repeating, like mimicking language and using his sign language to communicate with us, other than just and right all the time. Cute. Thanks. I mean, your key is cute, but yeah.
Tangent. Are there things? So yeah, let's go back to. Are there things that would be deal breakers now if you and I were either dating now or we were divorced and you had to go back out into the world and date? That you maybe didn't have when we were 19 and 21. Other than things we didn't have to think about, right? We didn't have to think about money back then. We didn't have, you know.
I do actually think that political views would matter to me now. They maybe should have before, but they didn't when we first met. And I think that now, because I feel a little bit more confident in what I believe in, that would be important to me. And just, political, social justice stuff is a little bit more important to me now than, I mean, I was 19 or 21 when we met, so you were 19. I don't know. I don't know what else would be important now. I still think like the basics, like marriage, children, because at this point, if at this point having Lucas, if we were to split up, which we're not going to, we keep saying this, we're not going to.
Well, right. So there's another one, kids.
Right.
Like if we were to not, kids.
Right. Now I already have
dating somebody with kids. Right.
Right. I already have one.
Right. So then we would be single parents if we were
else.
somehow divorced and.
Right, because if that happened, I don't know that I would start dating right away. And so by the time I start dating and find somebody, I wouldn't want more kids. I wouldn't want to start over, probably. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. Let's not talk about it. We're not splitting up, so it's fine.
No, but that's definitely a topic that you need to talk about. Is not only do you want to have kids, or if you have kids currently, that's probably. I mean, I feel like that's like a date 1 or 2 kind of a thing.
Right.
Maybe not so much the conversation of, well, when do you meet their kids? You know, that's a down the road conversation. But because there's trust me, there's lots of theories on that. There's lots of discussion about that. There's lots of, you know, thoughts of when is it appropriate to do, when is it not appropriate to do. But just simply like, hey, I have a kid who's X years old.
Right. Yeah. I think still marriage, children, politics. I don't know that.
Where do you want to live? You were talking about that earlier.
Oh, yeah, like where do you want to live as far as like I'm a suburb girl. I am not a city, like in the city, or I am not in the country. Like that is not, I love going to my cabin when we can get up there, but I could not live in the middle of nowhere. Like I need to be around things, but also like removed enough from like the busy city. Yes, retirement plans do become important.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think if we were to start dating now, that would be something to talk about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And not only from a financial perspective, but also like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just are you going to work part-time for the rest of your life? Or are you going to travel the world? What are you going to do when you're not working?
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And yeah. I don't think religion would be as high on my list now. I don't know why.
And I hate to say it because it shouldn't, but I feel like politics and religion to some degree intertwine.
Ish, yeah. I mean, it's not as big of a deal for me now. I think I was so recently removed from church when I met you. So that I was like, yes, this is a huge part of my life. Yes. I went to church a couple times in Winona. Like I, checked out churches in Winona and stuff, and where we went to college. And I think, it is an important part of my life, but I think that I would be much more open to having a conversation about different religions or not having a religion. I'm much more open to that idea.
Well, like what if it was somebody who was like dramatically different religion? Like if you met somebody who was like Hindu.
We would have a conversation about what that means and how we would because
In fact, we went to a friend's wedding who
wasn't a wedding. It was a funeral.
No. Callie.
Oh! But we didn't go to that wedding, though.
Right, we didn't, but they had two separate wedding ceremonies. One was a traditional Christian wedding ceremony.
Right.
Well, yeah, and one was...
They had a ceremony that... They come from giant families. Both, their immediate families were 100 people combined. Like, that's insane. So they had, that with their families, and then the reception, they had both... traditional American white wedding dress, Western culture wedding, and then his culture wedding.
We don't
attire.
know specifically.
They switched it up through the night. Yeah. But we've never been to one of those weekend long thing, cultural events, wedding, whatever. We've been to a Hindi funeral.
Yes.
Yeah. But, so, to answer your question, I think that would just be a conversation, especially if the other person also had children, and we both wanted to raise our children religiously. I guess that would be a conversation, yeah. But I don't know if it's a deal breaker for me at this point. I don't know. What about you? More things? Just guns?
I think mostly just look, there are some real obvious things, like if you're a raging frickin' homophobe or racist, but I feel like you kind of know those things.
Right. Right. That's a deal breaker. I don't have to spend more than one day with you to figure that out. Right.
That's not a conversation. How do you feel about gay people?
Yeah.
You kind of, you know what I mean?
You just gotta get a sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things become less flexible. Exactly. Right. Right. Especially when you're this is how I want to raise my child. Right.
Yeah. Or the fact that literally we have one. That's not
right.
flexible. You're either okay with that or you're not.
Well, and I think that we, as we got closer, like we knew we wanted kids, and deep down at our core, we have a lot of the same values.
We got lucky in that sense.
Yes, but I think we didn't talk about like parenting styles until much later down the line when we were in our marriage and then talking about kids, because we wanted kids, but we didn't talk about parenting styles. And I think that kind of thing could be a deal breaker. I think if you're older when you meet somebody, and by older I would say like 30 or up, as far as when we're talking about parenting styles.
Well, I mean, lots of people we know had kids well before 30.
No, but I mean, as far as like being a deal breaker and talking about that before you even decide to be in a relationship with somebody. Because we didn't talk about that until we were already married, really. Like our beliefs and how we would parent a child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think now you might, I think if you're a little bit older, if you're 30 and above, I don't know, 32 and I don't even know. I can't.
Mind you, this is all like our subjective opinion, folks.
Yeah.
This is not like I did all of this research before we came on tonight and no.
I asked my friends. That's what I did.
A lot of this stuff is subjective. Even like I was talking about before, there are many opinions from professionals, from licensed professionals about what do you do when you're dating when you have kids. When do you introduce those people to your partner that you're dating? There's many professional opinions about it, right?
Sorry, bruh. You can't base your life on our stream. Sorry. So yeah. We went on a lot of tangents. I'm sure beer contributed to that, but we don't really know what we're talking about next week yet.
No, we'll figure it out.
You know what? I didn't drink for 9 months. I'm building it back up. It's fine. So, yes, well, we don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but probably something to do with relationships.
It'll be something ridiculous, I'm sure.
And we'll have lots of fun tangents, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for watching. I'm going to go to bed, and we'll see you next week.
She's going to go to bed. We're all going to go raid somebody.
Is that why you have a post-it note that says
yes,
raid?
Because I always forget to do it, and so I have a post-it note on my monitor that says raid. Because I always forget to do it, and I know that it helps people and something we should do, and so we're gonna go do it. So thank you again, Cheap Trick of Conjurers, for doing that for us. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for everyone else who's been hanging out with us. I will be back with today's Wednesday. I will be back on Sunday, where we're going to be talking about beer.
We're empty.
We're going to be talking about my favorite breweries, or our favorite breweries, with my co-hosts on Sunday.
Are you doing the bracket?
Yes, we're probably going to go back to the bracket, unless any other controversial shit comes up in the Minnesota beer community. Then we're going to talk about that.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, check out
the videos on demand in the channel. Those are there. Last week in Minnesota Beer News, a majority owner of a brewery, a story from 2 years ago surfaced that he allegedly tied a noose and said, "Come here, boy," to a black employee.
Bad man.
Yeah, not good. Not good at all. And so
we talked about it on this past Sunday.
We talked all about that. Yeah.
So
they have officially started the process of divesting him from the company. So good on them.
You'll probably maybe recap any new information, but then you're going to talk about the bracket again.
Yeah, then we'll go back to that. Then Monday night, I have session number 2 of our brand new D&D stream. That was super fun. I'm super excited for that.
You're streaming D&D? I didn't know you were doing a stream.
Yeah, we're doing a... How did you... I thought I told you that.
You didn't tell me.
Okay.
Surprise!
We're streaming it on Monday night.
When are you doing...
9 o'clock
when are
Central
we doing
Time.
The beer tasting?
That box is available in
it's in August.
Yeah.
Never mind. Maybe my birthday weekend. Wouldn't that be fun? It'd be fun to join up, because I don't show up on his beer show.
We're gonna have our beer cicerone back on, and because a lot of the beer festivals that I go to are canceled because of COVID, and so one of the local liquor stores put together a beer dabbler box, and it's 12 different beers in a box, and they're selling them, as a package. And so myself, my two co-hosts, and our beer cicerone, which is sort of like a wine sommelier, are going to hang out and sample them all. Now, I'm not going to drink 12 freaking beers on stream. Okay?
So I'm coming in.
So we're going to have Sarah help.
Usually during his beer show, I am the parent. So that's right around Lucas's nap time. So I'm not usually available to join the beer show. Beer show? Wow, I'm so Minnesotan right now. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Did you catch that show? But I'm excited to join that when that happens in August. Otherwise, I'm not on the beer show. I'm just here.
And then we'll figure out something else ridiculous to talk about for next week. Here, Wednesdays.
Yeah, and I won't have worked. Summer school's over tomorrow, so I am off for the summer, starting tomorrow. So I'll have a much more relaxed. What are you doing?
I'm figuring out who we're gonna go raid.
Oh, well, maybe
who is on. Let's see.
Yes, my coworker is like, we are tomorrow, 2:00. We're done for the summer. I mean,
oh yeah.
I'm still working. I'm doing my part-time job still occasionally, but mostly not working, because.
Sure. You know what? I knew who we're gonna go raid. We're gonna go raid Praetor's Rejects. Because our DM on Mondays is a former person who used to show up on Duff's stream. So we're going to go read him. I don't know who's on right now, but we'll figure it out. So
I know this is backwards. To you guys, but I'm just going to hold the raid sign for
you're
a
going to
while.
hold the raid sign?
I don't know. I don't know. All right, well, I don't know. Apparently he's... What is...
So we're going to go watch some tabletop RPGs, y'all.
He's checked out of our show, guys. Like, he's checked out. He's moving on to his raid. So thank you. I'll end this. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in tonight to our tangent-filled episode.
Mm-hmm. If I could figure out how to do this.
What are you trying to do? Like, add it into the thing? Friends, this is really thrilling.
Bear with me. I don't do this a whole lot.
Here
we go. All right, cool.
TV.
We're going to go do that. All right. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Bye. Turn it off.
No, we got to wait.
For what?
For this thing to like switch over, I think. I don't know.
What?